My beloved child, before this moment slips past you unnoticed, listen carefully, because what is unfolding around you is not random, not delayed, and not confused anymore. There is someone whose heart has been moving in silence, someone who never played games with your emotions, someone who chose patience over pressure, loyalty over noise, and depth over attention, and this person has reached a point where watching you from a distance is no longer enough, because their intentions were never temporary curiosity, never emotional convenience, but a long-term vision where you were never an option. You were the destination, and what makes this moment intense is not just that they are about to propose something life-altering, but that they have already rehearsed this decision in their mind countless times, imagining your reaction, your silence, your smile, even your hesitation, and yet choosing you every single time without doubt. There is a reason your energy has been shifting lately, a reason memories keep resurfacing without warning, a reason certain songs feel heavier, certain conversations feel deeper, and certain pauses feel louder than words, because while you were busy surviving your own battles, someone else was quietly studying your wounds, respecting your pace, and promising themselves they would never become another source of pain in your life. And this is what makes their intention pure, because they are not rushing you to fill a void, they are not proposing to escape loneliness. They are not coming because something failed elsewhere, they are coming because after seeing everything you are, including the parts you try to hide, they decided that building a future with you is worth the risk, the patience, and the vulnerability it requires. What makes this moment even more powerful is that you have crossed paths with many people who spoke beautifully but acted inconsistently, people who promised effort but disappeared when it became inconvenient, people who admired you but never protected you, and those experiences trained your heart to stay alert, to question sincerity, to expect delay or disappointment. And that is exactly why this proposal will feel unreal at first, because it is not loud, dramatic, or impulsive, it is grounded, intentional, and carefully timed, and the closeness of this moment is not measured in days or dates, but in emotional readiness, because the person approaching you waited until they could show up as stability, not chaos, as clarity, not confusion, and as commitment, not uncertainty. You may not realize it yet, but this person has already defended you in rooms you were not present in, chosen you in moments when walking away would have been easier, and imagined protecting your peace even before claiming your hand, because their idea of love is not possession, it is responsibility, and that is why their proposal will not feel like pressure, it will feel like relief, like finally being seen without having to explain yourself, like finally being chosen without having to compete. And the closeness you sense is not coincidence, it is alignment, because everything that delayed this moment was shaping both of you into versions capable of sustaining what is about to begin. So stay present, stay grounded, and do not underestimate what is approaching your life, because this is not a chapter that arrives with chaos, it arrives with certainty, and when it happens, you will understand why it did not happen sooner, why others fell away, why silence had a purpose, and why your heart had to learn patience before receiving something this real, this intentional, and this close. Because someone with pure intentions is no longer wondering if they should step forward, they are only deciding how, and that moment is closer than you think. There is a quiet momentum building behind the scenes, a kind of certainty that does not announce itself loudly but rearranges everything subtly, because the person moving toward you has already crossed the most difficult threshold. Deciding that their future is incomplete without you in it, and once that decision was made, everything else became preparation rather than doubt, which is why you may feel an unusual calm mixed with anticipation lately, as if life itself is holding its breath, waiting for a sentence to finally be spoken that has been forming for a very long time in someone else's heart. What you don't see is how deeply this person has studied timing, not just circumstances but emotions, because they refused to approach you when you were still healing, refused to interrupt your growth, refused to bring promises before they could bring consistency, and that restraint is the clearest proof of purity, since anyone can rush toward desire, but only someone sincere waits until love can be offered without conditions, without confusion, and without fear of losing control, knowing fully that a proposal is not about asking for ownership, it is about offering partnership with respect and intention. There were moments when they almost stepped forward sooner, moments when the words were already sitting on their tongue, but they pulled back not because of uncertainty about you, but because they wanted to arrive as someone who could protect what they were about to ask for, someone who could stand steady when emotions rise, someone who could build instead of just promise, and this is why their presence around you has felt different from others. More grounded, more observant, more patient. Because they were not auditioning for your attention, they were preparing for your trust. You may be questioning your intuition right now, wondering why everything suddenly feels aligned after so much delay, but understand this clearly. Alignment does not rush, it arrives when resistance dissolves, and the closeness of this proposal is not about distance between bodies, it is about distance between intentions and action shrinking to almost nothing, because the internal decision has already been made, the emotional commitment has already been sealed, and what remains is simply the courage to turn a private certainty into a shared reality. And when this moment unfolds, it will not feel like a surprise pulled out of nowhere, it will feel like recognition, like something you already knew but were waiting to see reflected back to you, and you will realize that all the waiting, all the silence, all the lessons were not detours, they were alignment, shaping both of you into people capable of holding something this serious, this intentional, and this real. Because a proposal born from pure intention does not shake your world with chaos, it steadies it with truth, and that truth is already standing very close to you now. Something subtle has already shifted in the way this person looks at you, listens to you, and holds space for you, because when intention turns serious, behavior becomes intentional without announcement, and you may have noticed how their words have slowed, how their presence has deepened, and how their attention no longer feels scattered, as if they are no longer exploring possibilities but focusing on certainty, because deep inside they have stopped asking questions about who they want and started planning how to honor that choice without disrupting your peace. This is not the kind of proposal that comes from emotional excitement or fleeting inspiration, it is being built from accumulated moments of observation, moments where they watched how you handle pressure, how you protect your values, how you remain kind even when misunderstood, and those moments quietly convince them that choosing you is not a risk but a responsibility they are ready to carry, which is why their closeness now feels deliberate rather than accidental, steady rather than intense, because intensity fades but intention endures. You may sense their hesitation not as fear but as care, because they are measuring not whether you will say yes, but whether the moment will honor you properly, whether the timing will respect your journey, whether their words will reflect the depth they feel without overwhelming you, and this level of consideration is rare, because it requires emotional maturity to understand that love is not proven by urgency, but by patience and preparedness, and this is why everything around this connection feels heavier now, more meaningful, more anchored in reality. There have been signs placed along your path that you may have dismissed as coincidence, moments where your thoughts aligned, conversations echoed unspoken feelings, or silence felt strangely comforting instead of empty, and these are not illusions, they are indicators that two inner worlds are synchronizing, that the emotional distance between you is closing even if the words have not yet been spoken. Because intention has a way of announcing itself through consistency long before it reveals itself through declarations. So as this moment draws nearer, do not mistake the calm for lack of movement, because beneath that calm is a decision already standing firm, a choice already made, and a future already being respected, and when this person finally steps forward, it will not feel like a leap into the unknown, it will feel like a natural continuation of something that has been unfolding quietly all along. Because when someone with pure intentions prepares to propose, they do not arrive suddenly, they arrive ready. There comes a phase where intention stops being an inner thought and starts shaping external reality, and this is exactly where this connection stands right now, because the person moving toward you is no longer imagining possibilities, they are aligning circumstances, emotions, and courage, knowing very well that what they are about to offer is not casual affection but a deliberate future, and that awareness has changed the way they walk toward you, slower yet firmer, quieter yet undeniable. Because they understand that a proposal born from purity must arrive with stability, not spectacle. What makes this moment powerful is not the act itself, but everything that preceded it, the self-correction, the inner discipline, the silent promises they made to themselves about how they would treat you, protect you, and stand beside you when life becomes demanding, because they did not want to approach you as someone who merely desires you, but as someone capable of holding your trust without breaking it. And that preparation is why this moment feels heavy in a good way, as if something meaningful is settling into place rather than erupting suddenly. You might feel an emotional pressure that you cannot explain, a mix of anticipation and stillness, because when something real approaches, the soul senses it before the mind understands it, and this is why distractions feel weaker now, surface connections feel irrelevant, and your intuition keeps pulling you back to the same energy, the same presence, the same sense of familiarity, because your inner world already recognizes what your logical mind is still processing. This person has already imagined standing in front of you with honesty rather than performance, clarity rather than persuasion, because they do not want to convince you to choose them, they want to invite you into a shared decision, and that difference matters, because love that asks for permission respects boundaries, while love that pressures only seeks control, and the one approaching you has chosen respect every single time, even when it required patience and restraint. So as this chapter inches closer to revealing itself, understand that nothing about it is rushed, forced, or uncertain, it is unfolding with intention, with care, and with a depth that does not need validation from the outside, and when this moment finally arrives, you will feel it not as a shock, but as confirmation, a quiet but powerful realization that something genuine has been moving toward you all along, patiently, purposefully, and now unmistakably close. There is a moment before truth reveals itself when everything feels suspended, when time seems slower and emotions feel heavier, and that is the space you are standing in now, because the person preparing to step forward has reached emotional clarity, not excitement-driven courage but grounded certainty, the kind that does not shake under pressure, the kind that survives silence, and the kind that knows exactly why it chose you and would choose you again even if no one was watching, because their intention was never to impress the world, it was to honor you. This person has already imagined the responsibility that comes with choosing you, not just the joy, not just the closeness, but the everyday commitment of showing up when things are ordinary, when things are difficult, when things are quiet, and that awareness did not scare them away, it anchored them deeper, because they are not seeking a highlight moment, they are seeking a lifetime rhythm. And that is why their approach feels calm yet unavoidable, like a decision that has already been lived internally before being spoken out loud. You may feel an unusual sense of emotional exposure lately, as if your heart is more open without effort, as if defenses you once relied on no longer feel necessary, and this is not weakness, it is readiness, because when something sincere approaches, the soul instinctively prepares to receive it, shedding fear, releasing old narratives, and making space for something that does not demand proof, because its consistency already speaks louder than promises ever could. What makes this proposal different from anything you have encountered before is that it is not trying to rewrite who you are, it is trying to build with who you already are, respecting your past, your lessons, and your boundaries, and that level of acceptance is rare, because it requires emotional strength to love without control, to commit without conditions, and to step forward without expectations of perfection. And this person has reached that place quietly, without applause, without shortcuts. So as this chapter continues to unfold, trust the stillness you feel, trust the sense of alignment that cannot be forced or faked, because something meaningful is no longer forming, it is approaching, and when the moment arrives, you will recognize it not by surprise, but by the deep sense of familiarity that tells you this connection was never accidental, never rushed, and never temporary, but always moving toward this point with pure intention. There is a quiet certainty now surrounding this connection, a certainty that does not need reassurance or external validation, because the person stepping closer to you has already crossed the inner line where hesitation ends and commitment begins, and from that moment onward, every thought, every plan, every pause has been shaped by one question alone. How to honor you properly, not how to impress you, not how to rush you, but how to approach you in a way that feels safe, respectful, and undeniably real. This is why their energy around you has become more grounded, more intentional, because they are no longer testing emotional waters, they are preparing to stand firmly within them, knowing that proposing is not about asking for a moment, but offering a future, and that future requires emotional maturity, consistency, and a willingness to protect what is built even when circumstances change. And they would not be this close if they were unsure, unprepared, or distracted by alternatives. You may notice how your own inner dialogue has changed, how doubts feel quieter, how fear feels less convincing, because when something genuine approaches, it does not create chaos, it creates clarity, and clarity has a way of dissolving old defense mechanisms without force, reminding you that not every connection comes to test your endurance. Some arrive to support your growth and walk beside you without demanding you become someone else. What is powerful about this moment is that it is not driven by urgency, but by readiness, because the person approaching you understands that love does not need to be dramatic to be meaningful, it needs to be steady to be sustainable, and that understanding has guided their every step toward you, ensuring that when they finally speak, their words will not be reactive, but intentional, not uncertain, but grounded in truth. So remain present in this space, because what is drawing near is not a question wrapped in confusion, but an offer shaped by patience, observation, and genuine care, and when this moment reveals itself fully, you will not feel rushed or overwhelmed, you will feel seen, respected, and understood, because someone with pure intentions does not arrive loudly, they arrive correctly, and that arrival is now closer than ever. What is approaching now is not suspense built on uncertainty, but anticipation rooted in truth, because the person moving toward you has already aligned their inner world with the reality they want to create, and that alignment has reached a point where silence no longer feels appropriate, where intention demands expression, not for validation, but for honesty, because when someone knows without doubt that you are the one they choose, holding that truth back becomes heavier than revealing it. This person understands that proposing is not about changing your life overnight, but about standing beside you through the life you already carry, respecting your pace, your dreams, your boundaries, and your individuality, and that understanding has shaped their confidence, because they are not asking you to become something else, they are acknowledging who you already are and saying, with calm certainty, that this is exactly who they want to walk forward with. You may feel a sense of emotional recognition even before the moment arrives, a quiet knowing that settles deep rather than excites the surface, because genuine connection does not announce itself with chaos, it resonates with familiarity, safety, and clarity, and that resonance is what makes this proposal powerful, because it does not rely on surprise, it relies on truth that has been consistent long before it is spoken. Everything that once felt delayed now reveals its purpose, because timing was never working against you, it was preparing you both to meet each other without fear, without confusion, and without unresolved weight from the past, and that preparation is why this moment will feel steady rather than overwhelming, grounding rather than dramatic, and meaningful rather than fleeting. So when this chapter finally opens fully, you will understand that nothing about it was accidental, rushed, or uncertain. It was built quietly through intention, patience, and emotional maturity, and what stands before you is not a question filled with doubt, but an offer shaped by respect, sincerity, and commitment, because someone with pure intentions does not approach halfway, they come forward completely, and that truth is now unmistakably present. Now the distance between intention and action has almost disappeared, because the person who has been walking toward you internally is no longer satisfied with holding certainty alone, and this is the stage where truth seeks movement, where feelings demand form, and where love that has been patient begins to ask for permission to become visible, not as a demand, but as an offering shaped by deep respect and unwavering clarity. This person has already accepted every version of you in their mind, not the idealized version, but the real one, the thoughtful one, the tired one, the growing one, and that acceptance is what gives them the courage to step forward without fear, because they are not proposing to an image, they are proposing to a human being with history, depth, and dreams, and that level of awareness turns intention into something solid. Something reliable, something that does not crumble when reality shows up. You may sense a subtle emotional readiness within yourself as well, a feeling that you no longer need to question sincerity the way you once did, because your intuition recognizes consistency, recognizes safety, and recognizes effort that does not ask for applause, and that recognition is not coincidence. It is alignment, because genuine intentions resonate on a level that does not require explanation, only presence. What is powerful about this moment is that it is not fueled by fear of loss or urgency to secure, but by the calm confidence that choosing you is a decision worth standing behind, publicly and privately, and this is why the energy surrounding this connection feels steady rather than anxious, intentional rather than impulsive, because when someone is ready to propose with pure intention, they are no longer negotiating with doubt. They are honoring a truth they have already accepted. So as this unfolding continues, understand that what is coming toward you carries weight, not pressure, meaning, not confusion, and when the moment finally arrives, it will feel like a quiet affirmation rather than a dramatic shock. Because the strongest commitments are not built in haste, They are revealed when both hearts are finally ready to speak the same truth out loud. There is a stillness before something meaningful takes shape, and this stillness is not emptiness, it is focus, because the person standing on the edge of this moment has already removed every distraction that once diluted their attention, leaving behind a single, unwavering truth. Choosing you is not an emotional impulse, it is a conscious commitment they are prepared to live by, not just announce. And that clarity has given them a calm strength that does not rush but also does not retreat. This person is not measuring your worth, they resolved that long ago. What they are measuring now is the weight of the promise they are about to offer, because they understand that proposing is not a statement of ownership, but a vow of presence, effort, and accountability, and that understanding has refined their words, their timing, and their approach, ensuring that when they speak, nothing will feel exaggerated or uncertain, only sincere. You may notice how your life has been quietly making space, how certain attachments feel less heavy, how unresolved emotions are loosening their grip, and this is not accidental, because when something genuine approaches, the inner world reorganizes itself to receive it, releasing what no longer aligns, and creating room for something that does not demand compromise of your values or identity. What makes this connection different is not intensity, but intention, because intensity fades when reality settles in, but intention strengthens when challenges appear, and the person approaching you knows this deeply, which is why they are coming forward with readiness rather than urgency, clarity rather than confusion, and a sense of responsibility that extends far beyond the moment itself. So as this chapter nears its turning point, remain attentive to the calm rather than the noise, because calm is where truth lives, and when this truth finally speaks, it will not ask you to gamble your heart, it will invite you to build something steady, honest, and enduring, because someone with pure intentions does not chase fleeting emotion, they stand firmly in commitment, and that commitment is now almost within reach.